Okay, hello everybody, and how are you doing today? Well, welcome back to PST Live. I'm Allan, and today we have a lot of listening to do, right? So get your ears ready. We're going to be diving into a lot of listening. So first thing we're going to do today, guys, is please turn to this sheet here where our topic is eating greens. Okay, now let's actually think about that first. Eating greens. What are greens? Well, basically, greens can be another name for vegetables. Okay, so greens equals vegetables. Or, sometimes we just shorten vegetables to veggies. Anyhow, now, as we all know, of course, a lot of children all over the world don't really like eating their greens, right? And lots of adults as well. They prefer to eat maybe proteins like chicken, beef, lamb, pork, etc., right? Or maybe they prefer dairy products like, cheese, yogurt, milk, ice cream, etc. Or maybe they prefer fruits like oranges, mangoes, bananas, etc., right? So a lot of parents around the world struggle to get their children to eat their greens, right? Because we all know that vegetables contain a lot of really essential vitamins and minerals as well, right? Anyhow, that's kind of our focus for today's listening. We're going to be listening to this article about eating greens and how hard it is to get children to eat their greens. Now, on a personal level, I am the father of a 2-year-old girl. And yes, it can be hard sometimes to get her to eat her greens. One of our simple strategies in order to get her to eat her greens is to simply mix her vegetables in with her carbohydrates, right? Now, actually, I've been saying a lot of different terms here that you guys might not be familiar with. So let me start with carbohydrates first, actually, and explain what those are. But carbohydrates. Now, we can actually just reduce this to carbs. And what are carbs? So everything I'm talking about here, I'm putting here on the left, is part of a different food group, right? Carbohydrates include things like bread, rice, etc., wheat, this kind of stuff. Or maybe also potatoes can be included as a carbohydrate, right? Now, actually, my daughter, she really loves carbohydrates, specifically rice. And she doesn't like her vegetables, especially as much as she used to. She used to really like vegetables like broccoli and tomato. She actually still loves tomato, but broccoli not so much. So in order to get her to eat her vegetables, we have to kind of mix those vegetables into her rice and then she'll eat them. But anyhow, before that also I mentioned a couple of other different food groups, and one of them was protein, right? Or our proteins. And of course, proteins include things that, build your muscle. So basically meat, right? But of course we can get protein from also beans and stuff like that. But of course meat includes a lot of different things. Pork, beef, chicken, lamb, goat, etc., right? Fish, da. So we've got vegetables, carbohydrates, proteins, but we also have dairy products as well. Dairy includes things like yogurt, milk, cheese, etc. And what was the other one I mentioned? Yeah, dairy, proteins, carbs, vegetables. Oh, that's pretty good. Of course, we should also include fats, right? Which is included in sometimes meat, but can also be included in things like oil, meat, etc. Anyhow, but our big focus for today is vegetables, right? And greens. So anyhow, guys, let's take a look at some of our pre-listening warm-up questions here, and these are just a discussion. I'll just give you guys my example. Number 1, eating greens. Do you like vegetables? Okay, good question. Now, I am a mid-30s adult male. At this point in my life, do I enjoy eating vegetables? I'd have to say yes, but of course it depends on the vegetable. Just like my daughter, of course, I love tomatoes. I think tomatoes are great. I like broccoli, I like spinach, I like eggplant, I like onions, etc., etc. But really it just depends on the way they're cooked. However, there are some vegetables that I really don't like at all. And those would be things like maybe Brussels sprouts, right? Now, a lot of you guys over in Japan or Korea, probably Brazil too, might not be aware of what Brussels sprouts are. So you can look them up online or do a Google image search for them. Brussels sprouts are a pretty common vegetable to eat around Thanksgiving or Christmas time here in Canada, maybe also in the United States. They kind of look like mini little cabbages, and they have a very bitter flavor to them. So I really don't like Brussels sprouts, but also I don't like carrots. And my mom used to make me eat a lot of carrots because she thought if you eat a lot of carrots, it will improve your eyesight. But I think that is kind of a myth, right? I don't think that's actually true that eating a lot of carrots improves your eyesight, but it didn't hurt either. So carrots and Brussels sprouts, yuck, gross, ew, not really my favorite. But anyhow, let's take a look at another question. Next question says, what is your favorite vegetable? Okay, yeah, easy one for me. I say overall I'd have to go with tomatoes. I like to eat tomatoes in a salad, or I like to eat tomatoes just raw. Yeah, like I can just pick up a tomato out of the fridge and eat it like an apple or an orange. I think it's great, especially when tomatoes are ripe, right? When they're ripe and they're coming from a good region or area in the world, I think they're really delicious. Let me write down ripe. So ripe, R-I-P-E. This is an adjective, and ripe means kind of like mature, or how can I say, sure, ready to eat. Now, ripe is something we usually just use to describe vegetables. Yeah, usually only vegetables or fruits. If we say a certain vegetable or fruit is ripe, that means it's not too young and it's not too old. It's at the perfect time in which to eat it, right? It's mature. Now, I don't mean mature like, like, oh, I have a job and I go to work every day. Like tomatoes can't do that, right? But anyhow, they're ready to eat when they're ripe. The opposite of ripe is just unripe. And everybody here has probably eaten an unripe fruit, right? It's usually too sour, tastes really bad, and you have to spit it out, right? Anyhow, guys, so I really like ripe tomatoes, but of course, tomatoes are also part of one of the most famous condiments in the entire world. And of course, that is ketchup, right? And I think pretty much everybody, well, there are a few people that don't like ketchup, but I'm pretty sure 90% of the world's population loves ketchup. And I think it's one of the most important sauces or condiments out there. So for that reason, I'd have to say my favorite vegetable is the tomato. Yum, yum, right? And I kept saying condiment. Condiment is basically like another word for sauce, but in a restaurant. So you guys know when you go to a restaurant, especially a fast food restaurant, they have little packets or little packs of salt or pepper or vinegar, ketchup, soy sauce, etc., salsa, stuff like that. Anyhow, we usually call those condiments. And tomato ketchup is my favorite condiment. So that's why tomatoes are my favorite vegetable. What is your least favorite? Okay, I already kind of talked about this, but yeah, Brussels sprouts, really hate them. Carrots, really dislike them. I also don't really like beets. I'm not sure if you guys know what beets are. Again, it's probably not very common in Korea, Japan, or Brazil to eat beets. Beets are commonly eaten by Eastern European people, such as Russian or Ukrainian. But some people here in Canada and the United States also eat beets. And beets are kind of like a bright red, purple, kind of a mix between red and purple, usually more on the purple side vegetable. And they're about this big. If you guys know what borscht is, and borscht is kind of the famous Russian Ukrainian soup, the base of that soup is beets. And I like borscht actually, but I don't like beets. Sometimes people put them in a salad or they just boil them or bake them. Ugh, yeah, I think they're kind of awful. I don't know why I don't like them. I don't like the flavor. So Brussels sprouts, beets, yeah, carrots. Yeah, there are a couple other vegetables I don't like. But, you know, now that I'm a mid-30s adult male, you know, when I was younger, I think I disliked vegetables much more than now. Now I'm older, I'm more mature, I realize that vegetables are important, we should consume them. And yeah, I really like things like broccoli, tomatoes, and spinach. But maybe when I was younger, I didn't consume as many vegetables as I do now. But anyhow, guys, let's move on. Let's take a look at number 2. This is kind of a fun one, maybe for you guys just to do at home. Of course, I'm going to give you guys my example, but this is just my example. Because there is no correct answer here, right? This is just a personal question. It says rank these by putting the best at the top. Okay, let's take a look at our list here. We've got cabbage, Brussels sprouts, celery. Oh, I also don't really like celery. Broccoli, spinach, and green peas. Peas. Haven't had them in quite a while. Okay, guys, now first off, I hope you guys understand what all of these vegetables are. If you don't, probably a good idea to just go to Google, especially Google Images, right? Type it in there and search and find a picture, right? Now, you guys should think of your own answer at home, but I'm going to give you my own personal answer. I'm going to rearrange these from my favorite to my least favorite, right? But I'm also going to try to base it on what I think is nutritious, right? So I'm just going to erase this here, and then I'm going to make my list. So here we go. So let me think about this. What vegetable will I say is number 1? Wait, is tomatoes? Oh, tomatoes aren't included here. No! Alright, so I can't talk about tomatoes, but I can talk about spinach, which is one of my favorite vegetables, along with broccoli, right? Yeah, broccoli as well. This board is starting to sound kind of funny, but not ha-ha funny, right? Okay, anyhow guys, on this list here, I'd have to say overall, for number 1, I would probably put spinach. Okay, so for me, I actually like the taste of spinach, and I really like something called spinach soup. My wife likes to make this kind of soup with spinach in it. It's quite good. Also, I think when you're making a pasta dish and when you're making the sauce, you know, with meat and onions or whatever, it's very easy to add spinach, and by doing that, you're including a lot of good nutrients, right? It's very nutritious. So that's the reason why spinach for me is number 1, because it tastes good, and also I heard that it is one of the most nutritious vegetables, right? I think only kale is more nutritious than spinach, but I hate kale. I should have mentioned that earlier. Kale is very popular in Vancouver. It's kind of like a fad or a trend, like you must eat kale. If you don't know what kale is, I'll just write it down here. It is a green leafy vegetable, but it's very dense, very thick, and extremely bitter. However, on the other hand, it is extremely nutritious, so a lot of people put these in smoothies, but I think they're just disgusting, so yeah, I hate kale. Anyhow, number 1, we're gonna go with spinach. For number 2, what would I go with number 2? Okay, I gotta go with broccoli because I just like the way broccoli tastes, right? And that's probably kind of confusing for some people who think like, oh, broccoli doesn't taste good. Well, I think it tastes pretty good, and it's pretty easy to make broccoli taste good if you mix it into something. So, and again, broccoli I think also quite nutritious. So for me, number 2 is broccoli. Number 3 for me, okay, I'm gonna have to go with cabbage. Because my wife likes cabbage and she makes some good dishes with cabbage. I think cabbage is pretty good. Not my favorite, but I think it's pretty good, and I think it's easy to mix this into something. And as far as nutrition goes, though, I don't think cabbage is very nutritious, but of course it's still healthy, so I think it's pretty good. Okay, so for number 4 for me, I think I gotta go with green peas, and actually I haven't had green peas in quite a while. My grandmother on my father's side used to make a lot of dishes with green peas because she was English, right? And I think people from the United Kingdom, more so than other countries, really like green peas. So I used to have a lot of green peas whenever I'd see my grandmother. And yeah, I think they're pretty flavorful. I think they're pretty good, right? Tasty. And that's a good word too. Flavorful. And that basically just means tasty or yummy or delicious. Yummy is kind of a childish word for delicious, but anyhow. So yeah, green peas. I don't know if they're very nutritious, but they taste pretty good, so number 4. Okay, number 5 for me. Now we're getting into stuff I don't really like. Well, there's only 6 of them. Okay, I gotta go with celery. Celery is an interesting vegetable, is it not, right? Now, of course, celery stalks, I know it contains a lot of water, but also celery is kind of like thick or dense, right? That's why you have to chew on it for so long in order to consume it. Now, I did hear that celery is good if you're on a diet or if you want to lose weight. Because one interesting thing I read about celery is that if you don't cook it, if you eat it raw, you will actually burn more calories eating the celery than you will by consuming it, right? Because it just takes so long. You have to chew and chew and chew and chew in order to eat celery, right? But for me, I know that it's not very nutritious. So it's not very nutritious, it's mostly just water, but also, like, I just don't think it tastes good. I think celery, especially by itself, is just kind of tasteless, right? There's another good word, tasteless. Very good adjective, actually. Whoop, I'm saying tasteless. So that is an adjective, same as flavorful. Tasteless obviously means there's no taste, there's no flavor, right? We can also use this to describe people as well. If we say somebody is tasteless, it means they don't have good taste. Ooh, now this could really go off, could really get sidetracked here. If we say somebody has good taste, right? If somebody says, you have very good taste, that means they appreciate or they like maybe your sense of something, your sense of fashion, right? So if I see you and you're wearing some, let's say you're a guy, and you're wearing some really cool shoes, I might think like, yeah, you got good taste. You have good taste in fashion, right? Or maybe you're listening to a song, and I like that song, right? And I like, maybe it's some rock song, and I also like rock, and I also like that band. I might say, wow, you have good taste in music, right? Or maybe you watched the same movie and you also thought it was really awesome. I might say you have good taste in music, right? But if we say somebody is tasteless, it means kind of the opposite. We think like, oh my God, look at that guy's shoes, that's ridiculous, right? Or like, oh my God, that guy really liked that movie. He really liked Superman versus Batman. What? That movie was garbage, right? Man, that guy's got no taste. He's tasteless, right? Anyhow, guys, we're kind of going off track there, so let's get back to our list. Yeah, celery, not very nutritious. I don't think it tastes good. And maybe it's good for some dishes, but yeah, not really my cup of tea. I don't like it. Okay, so lastly, of course, that leaves us with my bitter enemy, Mr. Brussels sprouts. And again, if you don't really know what these are, you gotta look it up on Google Images. Oh, got Brussels sprouts, because yeah, they look like mini cabbages. I'm pretty sure that they're actually quite nutritious, that they actually contain a lot of good nutrients, but I think they're pretty gross, right? I think they're pretty awful, kind of yucky. Now that's another good term, kind of yucky, disgusting vegetable. So I just used that word yucky. I think I might have used that before. Disgusting. And yucky is kind of related to yummy, in that yucky is also a childish word. Yummy is a childish word, meaning it's flavorful, it's tasty, you know, it is delicious, right? But if something is disgusting, we say it is yucky. We might just say yuck, right? Anyhow, my daughter says that sometimes when I cook for her. Ooh, too bad, right? Anyhow, so what was I gonna say? What is yucky? Japanese people, of course, be careful with this word, right? Because I know you guys have the word yuki, and of course yuki could be a person's name, or it could be snow or something, but it looks very similar to yucky. I made a big mistake a long time ago when I first started teaching English, and I had a Japanese student and their name was written down as Y-U-K-I, right? And I called them yucky, and I thought that was kind of funny, but no, that wasn't funny. Anyhow, guys, but let's take a look at our actual listening here. Of course, what we're gonna do, guys, we're gonna listen, I think 2 or 3 times. You guys have to listen, and of course, you need to try to fill in the blanks as you're listening. And I'm gonna be doing the very same thing. So let's listen together, let's try to fill in those blanks, and then after we're done, I'm gonna go over the answers with you. Then we're gonna look at these comprehension questions here. And lastly, we got some discussion questions as well. Okay, so I hope you guys are ready. Here we go. Let's listen to it for the first time. Here we go.
Study finds why children don't eat their greens. This is breakingnewsenglish.com. Everyone knows that many young children don't like eating their greens. Parents have a hard time getting their children to eat vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts. A new study may have an answer about why this is. The study looked at the eating habits of 2 to 4-year-olds. It found that not liking greens is because of a child's genes. This means parents do not have to stress out over their children not eating enough vegetables. Many parents worry because they cannot get their children to eat healthily. The study found that changes in 2 genes can make children dislike greens. The changes put some youngsters off trying new food and can turn them into fussy eaters. The study found that changes in DNA can affect how some small children taste things differently. These children think many green vegetables taste very bitter. Children without the DNA changes do not think these vegetables are bitter. Natasha Cole, a member of an obesity prevention program at Illinois University, said it was not surprising that some children have very sensitive taste. She said this makes them think things like broccoli are bitter. She said the new research could help to find new ways of tackling childhood obesity. Ms. Cole says there needs to be more research. She said there is a huge gap in the research when children move from a milk-based diet to foods that the rest of the family eats. This is Cynthia Jones reporting from Vancouver, Canada.
Oh wow, reporting from Vancouver, Canada. Maybe I'll run into her at some point. All right, guys, now obviously Cynthia is reading this or saying this pretty quickly. I don't think that the vocabulary here is that difficult, but she is speaking pretty quickly, so we're gonna have to listen again. And again, try your best to fill in these blanks. So here we go again.
Study finds why children don't eat their greens. This is breakingnewsenglish.com. Everyone knows that many young children don't like eating their greens. Parents have a hard time getting their children to eat vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts. A new study may have an answer about why this is. The study looked at the eating habits of 2 to 4-year-olds. It found that not liking greens is because of a child's genes. This means parents do not have to stress out over their children not eating enough vegetables. Many parents worry because they cannot get their children to eat healthily. The study found that changes in 2 genes can make children dislike greens. The changes put some youngsters off trying new food and can turn them into fussy eaters. The study found that changes in DNA can affect how some small children taste things differently. These children think many green vegetables taste very bitter. Children without the DNA changes do not think these vegetables are bitter. Natasha, a member of an obesity prevention program at Illinois University, said it was not surprising that some children have very sensitive taste. She said this makes them think things like broccoli are bitter. She said the new research could help to find new ways of tackling childhood obesity. Ms. Cole says there needs to be more research. She said there is a huge gap in the research when children move from a milk-based diet to foods that the rest of the family eats. This is Cynthia Jones reporting from Vancouver, Canada.
Alright guys, now of course I'm not sure whether you guys have filled out everything so far, but why don't we take a look at this together. Now I was going to erase the board while that was playing, but sometimes the board is just a little bit squeaky, right? And I didn't want to interfere. So let me erase this and then let's take a look at what should go in those blanks there. Alright, and like I said before, it's not like the vocabulary is really that hard, right? But some of it was a little bit hard to catch because she was reading a little bit quickly at certain points, right? Okay, so let's take a look at our first blank. What do we got here? We got, everyone knows that many young children don't, what do not like, right? And that's our first word, is like. They don't like eating, and then they don't like eating their, but of course this is a possessive form of their. So it is there. They don't like eating their greens, right? So of course what that means is they don't like eating vegetables. They don't like lettuce, they don't like broccoli, they don't like spinach, etc., right? Now of course some vegetables are not green, but again, we just refer to vegetables as green sometimes. Anyhow, number 2 guys. Parents blank getting their children to eat vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts. So what goes in that blank? Parents, now actually there's quite a few words here, there are 4. And it includes kind of a good expression here, but parents have, and then we got an article, a, and then do parents have a easy? No, they have a hard time, right? They have a hard time getting their children to eat vegetables like broccoli, etc., etc. Now, have a hard time. That is a really useful expression. If you say, you know, I am having, like in the present continuous tense, if you say, I am having a hard time, it means right now your life is difficult, right? Maybe you're having trouble at work or relationship trouble with your boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, yada yada. Yeah, that's when you can use this expression. You can say, I am having a hard time. Or last month, I had a hard time. Or maybe next month, I will have a hard time because I'll be really busy in my workplace and this kind of stuff, right? Now, of course, you can also say the opposite. You know, have an easy time, right? I'm having an easy time these days. Well, okay, we do say that sometimes, but more often than not, we just use hard time, right? I'm having a hard time, you know? My job is really busy, I'm busy at work, and my cat died, and I lost a toonie yesterday. A toonie fell out on the street, some homeless guy picked it up. Oh man, I'm having a hard time. Anyhow, so that's number 2, guys. Anyhow, let's move on to number 3. A new study may have an answer. Okay, awesome. So they might have an answer as to why children don't like eating their greens. And it says here, a new study may have an answer about why this is. About why this, and then I think that's good. Yeah, why this is. So there's a new study or some new research that shows why children don't like eating greens. Okay, so let's read into this further and find out more. So move on to number 4. The study looked at the eating habits of 2 to 4-year-olds, right? So they're looking at children aged 2 to 4, right? 2, 3, 4. And they're looking at their eating habits. It found that not liking greens is because of a child's genes, right? Okay, so I guess it just depends on whether the child is wearing jeans from Gap or Levi jeans or, you know, some other brand of jeans, right? That's what is really important. Of course, that is a really bad joke, but those 2 words are pronounced the same, right? Jeans, Jeans, of course, is not the same thing as jeans, Genes, right? Of course, jeans, you know, Levi's, Gap, you know, whatever kind of brand of jeans, awesome. And then there are genes, which is related to your DNA, right? DNA. Oakley dokley though. Anyhow, going off topic, let's take a look at number 4. This means parents do not have to, of course we need to after that. They do not have to do what? They do not need to stress out, right? To stress out. And of course, stress out is really, really useful. Stress out is a phrasal verb, right? We use this a lot in English, actually, and a lot of ESL speakers don't use this enough or might not be familiar with this phrasal verb, to stress out, right? But we use this so much in English, right? When we see a loved one or a coworker and it looks like they have a lot of stress, we go up to them and we say, hey, don't stress out, right? Or like, hey, John, I need a favor, but please don't stress out, right? Could you please clean the bathroom? Don't stress out, right? But we use this a lot, and we can also just say, you could turn this into the adjective form by adding an ed. Say, I am stressed out. Man, I am stressed out, right? The bathroom is so dirty, and then Rachel asked me to clean it, and that's not my job, right? I am stressed out. She said, don't stress out. But how could I not stress out? Anyhow, guys, so stress out, very useful. Moving on, though. Many parents worry because they cannot get their child or their children to eat healthily. The study found that changes, and now we're talking about genes, right? Changes, now when we talk about changes, we talk about changes in something, right? A change in your life, right? Changes in 2 genes. Can make children dislike their greens or dislike vegetables, right? So changes in the actual DNA or the genes of a human being, or a child in this case, causes them to not like eating greens. The changes put some youngsters, now youngsters is another word for young people or children, right? The changes put some youngsters off trying new food and can turn them into, number 6, very useful term actually here, Fussy Eaters. Now there's fussy and then there's Fussy Eaters. Now a fussy eater is somebody that, well, another good term for fussy is, fussy can, and of course fussy is an adjective. Both of these are nouns, just in case. But fussy can have a similar meaning to picky eater, or a picky person, all right? Someone who is fussy or picky is very particular about the kind of food that they consume. You know, they're like, oh, I don't want to eat that. Ew, that looks gross. Or like, oh, the sandwich. Oh, you put the crust on the sandwich. Oh, could you cut it off just because like I don't like it. I'm fussy, right? Or when you watch a fussy eater, usually they're kind of pushing some food off to the side and like, oh, I don't like it. Oh, I'm fussy. So of course, a lot of children are fussy eaters, right? My kid, she's not so bad. She's not a big fussy eater, but of course there are some foods she doesn't like, right? And when we try to get her to eat those, then she becomes a fussy eater. So, fussy eater, useful term, but you can also just use fussy. It doesn't always have to be about food. It could be somebody who is particular about something else, right? Okay, anyhow. So move on to number 7 though. The study found that changes in DNA, yada, yada, yada. Some small children taste things differently. Okay. So number 7 here, guys. What we need is can and then affect. And affect how, right? So these changes in children's DNA can affect how some kids taste things differently. So these children think many green vegetables. And then number 8, how do they think they taste? Well, actually, sorry, I'm just giving you the first word there. Taste very, and then the next word we're looking for is basically the opposite of sweet. Of course, it is bitter, right? So these changes in DNA cause some children to think that some vegetables taste very bitter, and usually I think in a natural way, people don't really like bitter tasting things, right? That's not always true. I think when you get older, you start to appreciate bitter things, but when you're younger, right? Doesn't taste so good. Anyhow, number 9, guys. Number 9 here we got Natasha Cole, blank, an obesity prevention program at Illinois University, said it was not surprising some children, blank, sensitive taste. Okay, so these kids or these children think many green vegetables taste very bitter. Ooh, we already talked about that. Children without the DNA changes do not think these vegetables are bitter. Okay, interesting. Now, Natasha Cole. Now, the blank here is talking about who Natasha Cole is. So we got blank, an obesity prevention program. She is a member. And if you say I'm a member, somebody might say you're a member of what, right? So we also need of. So Natasha Cole is a member of an obesity prevention program. Now, that's kind of interesting stuff there, right? Because we got the word obesity, which is a noun and talks about this problem. And then, of course, that's related to just being obese, which is the adjective. So, actually, these words here, pretty important, especially if you're traveling in the United States or Canada. So in the US, obesity is a big problem. It's a pretty big problem in Canada too. Not as big as the United States. But yeah, there are a lot of obese people in the United States and Canada, although I think more in America. But basically, obesity and obese means like dangerously overweight. Or if, this is a little bit rude, but we could say like in an easy to explain way, extremely fat. Although that's kind of rude, we don't really want to say things like that. But anyhow, so if you are obese, that means you are dangerously overweight, right? Like you are so fat that it's going to really negatively affect your health, right? You might have a heart attack or a stroke because you are obese, right? And suffering from maybe other health problems. So yeah, dangerously overweight. On the other hand, of course, you can also say underweight, right? When somebody is way too skinny, maybe they're on some crazy diet and they look like a skeleton and it looks like if you touch them, they're gonna fall apart or something. Then we say, you know, they're dangerously skinny or they're really underweight. But yeah, in the United States, unfortunately, a lot of obesity, fair amount of obesity in Canada as well. Anyhow, So Natasha Cole is a member of an obesity prevention program at Illinois University. So she's trying to fight obesity. Okay, good for you, Natasha. And she said, okay. So she said it was not surprising some children, number 10. Okay. Now, after the blank number 10, it says sensitive taste. So actually, this one's really easy. Have very sensitive taste. So some children are just really, really sensitive to the taste of different things, especially these very bitter vegetables that they don't like eating. Okay, now we got 2 more here, guys. I'm just gonna erase number 1 and number 2 so I can keep everything on this side. Okay, good. Okay, yeah, have very sensitive taste. She said this makes them think things like broccoli are bitter. Oh no, it's not true. Not that broccoli is sweet, but it tastes pretty good. She said the new research could help to number 11. Now actually, this isn't a tough one. It is find new ways. So she said this new research could help to find new ways of tackling childhood obesity. Okay, great. Now you might be thinking, what is tackle, right? Now tackle usually is used when they're talking about rugby or football, those kind of sports, right? Or maybe fighting, but tackling is when you kind of do this and you hit something. But tackle can be used in a different way. To tackle a problem means to deal with the problem head on or face first, right? So if you say, I don't know, you gotta clean up your balcony, right? Your balcony is really, really dirty. You're like, I'm going to tackle that problem today, right? I'm gonna deal with it. I'm gonna face that problem. So anyhow, this new research could find maybe some possible ways of fighting childhood obesity because, yeah, it's really sad. And I don't want to judge other people, and I don't judge children. Sometimes I kind of judge the parents a little bit, but you're not supposed to do that. But anyhow, when you see a child on the streets who is very obese and their mother is giving them pop, like Coca-Cola, and also letting them eat potato chips, and this kid is already, dangerously overweight, not just fat, dangerously overweight. It's kind of like, geez, what are you doing, lady? Like, don't give your kid Coca-Cola and Pringle chips. That's gonna make their obesity worse, right? So Miss Cole says there needs to be more research. Okay, good. She said there is a huge gap in the research when children move from a blank, blank, blank to foods that the rest of the family eats. Now, the hint I could give you here is, of course, when you are a baby, or maybe early on when you're a toddler, like when you're around 2, you might still have this kind of diet. Okay, actually I gave you one of the words. Of course, you're consuming a lot of dairy, right? You're consuming a lot of dairy from your mom, but also maybe formula. And of course what I'm talking about is milk, right? So milk-based diet. So if we say based, it means that's where it's coming from. A milk-based diet. Of course, all children start off, all of us would start off with kind of a milk-based diet from our mom, or if our mom couldn't provide that, we had baby formula, which is still, based on milk. So anyhow, right? So I actually thought this was a pretty interesting article. Maybe that's just because I have a child and sometimes she can be a fussy or picky eater. But yeah, that's kind of interesting. Although my kid does like some vegetables. Now, what we need to do, guys, is of course we need to move on to our comprehension questions. We've got quite a few. We've got 10. So I hope you guys have written this stuff down if you didn't catch them already. Let me erase this, and then let's start looking at our comprehension questions. Now, obviously, if we were only going to look at this in the first class, we're going to run out of time. But what I think we're going to do, guys, is we will continue with this after the break, and then we will move into our other listening activities. So again, we might not have that much time to actually do the elective, but that's okay because the listening is more important. important. Okay, because you guys need to describe, foods this week, right? So you need to kind of go over and listen to these types of words. So let's take a look at number 1 here for a comprehension question. It says, what 2 vegetables were mentioned? Okay, so what 2 vegetables were mentioned near the very beginning of this? They both start with a B. One of them I really like. The other one I think is yucky, disgusting. But they are, well, actually, let's make full complete sentences, right? So the 2 veggies, I'm going to be a little bit lazy, not write vegetables. The 2 veggies mentioned were broccoli, and, oh wait, 2 C's, right? Ugh. And that one I hate, Brussels sprouts. Okay, good. Oh wait, oh, I really butchered the spelling of broccoli there. Oh my god. What a huge mistake. Very embarrassing, right? Those 2 C's look quite weird. Okay, yeah, broccoli and Brussels sprouts. Okay, good. So we got our veggies. Number 2, how old were the children the study looked at? Now, actually, I can just remember this off the top of my head. I hope you guys can too. How old were the kids that they were doing the research on? They were... What is Allan talking about, right? But they were 2 to 4 years old. Now, when you're talking about age and you have a hyphen or a dash between 2 numbers, right? We just pronounce that as 2. 2 to 4. If we're writing it, it would be T-O. 2 to 4, right? So we're looking at children's aged 2 to 4. Okay, number 3, guys. Ooh, this is going pretty quick, actually. Why can't many parents get their children... what can't many parents get their children to do healthily? Oh, this is so easy. We know because of the title of the article and everything, they can't get their children to eat healthily. So yeah, that's what the whole topic of this article is. They cannot get these children to eat healthily. Okay, number 4, how many genes did the research say change children's tastes? So that was actually pretty easy. I think you guys probably remember the number, there we go, like a peace symbol. The researchers said that changes in 2 genes affected. And wait, how can I say that? I wrote affected, but changed children's eating habits. Or changed children's tastes. Changed children's tastes. Okay. Alright, let's try to finish one more before we take a break here, guys, because we're almost at the break. Number 5. What kind of eaters do some youngsters become? Okay, I talked about this word quite a lot, so I'm going to write here some youngsters. Now just remember that means children. Some youngsters become something with an F. What is it? It's fussy. Some youngsters become fussy eaters. Okay, and there we go. All right, guys, so we're about halfway through our comprehension questions, but we're about at the break time right now. So why don't we take a 10-minute break? Hopefully you guys can think of maybe the answers to the other comprehension questions here if you don't have to do something right now. And yeah, anyhow, we'll take a break, we'll come back, we'll finish these off, we'll do some discussion questions, and we'll move on to the next listening. So I'll see you again in 10 minutes. Okay guys, welcome back to PST Live. We're gonna continue onwards with our comprehension questions here. So moving on to number 6, we have, what do changes in DNA change in some children? All right, so this question is a little bit harder than the previous one, so take a look back at the actual listening text here. Now, right after number 6, says the study found that changes in DNA can affect how some small children taste things differently. So basically that's our answer. What do changes in DNA change in some children? They change their tastes, right? So I'm going to expand that on that a little bit here, because the next line says, these children think many green vegetables taste very bitter. It makes some children think that some veggies taste very bitter. And there we go. Okay, so let's move on to number 7 then. Number 7, what kind of prevention program is Natasha Cole a member of? Okay, well, we focused on the word that was part of the group she is part of. So Natasha Cole is a member of the, was it national? I'm gonna have to double check here. Let's not say it's obesity prevention program at Illinois University. So Natasha Cole is a member of obesity prevention program at Illinois, and I hope I spelled that correctly because I'm not very aware of the names of different universities in the United States. At Illinois College or University? At Illinois University. Okay, let me double check Illinois. Yep, okay, I did spell it correctly. Okay, anyhow, number 8, guys. Number 8 is, what kind of taste do some children think vegetables have? Oh, okay, well actually I already answered this up here. So I'm just gonna say that, or write that, some children think they, and of course they means veggies, have a very bitter taste. Okay, good. Moving on to number 9. Number 9. What did Natasha Cole say there needs to be more of? Now this one actually I can't remember off the top of my head, so I'm gonna have to take a quick look back here. She said the new research could help to find new ways of tackling childhood obesity. Ms. Cole says there needs to be more research. Oh, okay. So there's our answer. She said there needs to be more research. Okay, good. And lastly, number 10. What kind of diets do children move from? Okay, so when they're babies, they have what kind of diet, and then they move into what other diet? But they move on from, what kind of diets do children move from? They move from a milk-based, that was kind of weird. That was really messy. Milk-based diet, right? Because of course all children start by consuming a lot of milk, right? Okie dokie guys, so that's all our comprehension questions. We got them all done. Finally, we can move on to discussion questions. Now, of course, we have to move into the other listening activities, so I'll try not to talk too much. But that's hard for me to do because sometimes I just like to blah, 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 right? Anyhow, guys, let's take a look at some of our discussion questions here. I'm just going to give you an example oral answer to these questions, but a lot of this is just your personal opinion, right? So your opinion might be very different from mine, and that's okay, right? So, number one for me, what did you think when you read the headline? When you read the title, what did you think, right? So, of course, the title was Eating Greens. So, what did you imagine? Now, for me, I'm an English speaker. I already know that greens equals vegetables, right? So, right when I saw the headline, I thought, okay, we're probably talking about eating vegetables, and we're probably going to be listening to somebody that's talking about how children don't like to eat vegetables and maybe how we can help them. So actually for me, it was really easy to guess what this article was going to be about. Now for you guys, maybe you guys had a completely different idea, right? Maybe you were just thinking about, I don't know, eating lettuce or eating something, I'm not sure. All right, now number two, what images are in your mind when you hear the word vegetable? Okay, so when you hear the word vegetable, what image pops into your mind? What do you see there? Now, for me, pretty easy. When I hear the word vegetables, usually what I imagine is a head of lettuce, a couple of tomatoes, a purple eggplant, so a head of cabbage, maybe also broccoli, things like that, right? So the image I have of vegetables is not terrible. I just imagine actual vegetables, whether positive or negative, or whether ones I like or don't like, right? Okay, now number three, have you always eaten your greens? Okay, have you always eaten your greens? I'd say when I was a kid, yeah, I didn't like vegetables as much as I do now, because now I understand that they're important. I guess I understood when I was a kid, I just didn't want to listen to that, but when I was a kid, I do think I did eat most vegetables. I didn't have a huge problem. However, I was also raised in a fairly strict household. Not very strict, but fairly strict. My parents were quite a bit, they were definitely more conservative than other parents. So because of that, my parents were strict, and if I said, I don't want to eat this, my mom and dad would say, well, if you don't want to eat it, you can leave the table, you can go to the neighbor's place, and you can eat what they're eating, blah, 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 right? And then they would kind of force us to eat our vegetables. So my siblings and I, my two brothers and my sister, and myself, yeah, we always ate our vegetables. However, like I said before, all of us, I think, hated Brussels sprouts. So Thanksgiving and also Christmas, maybe Easter as well, yeah, we didn't like to eat Brussels sprouts. So that's the one that we would avoid. Everything else, though, we would eat either because we didn't mind it, maybe we liked it, or because my parents forced us and, we just had to eat it. Anyhow, so number 4, why are vegetables so important? Okay, well, I think vegetables are important because they are very nutritious and contain many vitamins, right? That are essential for being healthy and essential for developing a healthy body, especially for children. So I do think vegetables are super important because they are nutritious and they contain a lot of vitamins. Okay, number 5, what are the good things about being a vegetarian? Okay, I don't know if I agree with that necessarily, but the important thing here to remember is that vegetarian does not equal vegan. Okay, so I think when it comes to the main difference here, it's that vegetarians, the majority of things they eat are vegetables and fruits, but vegetarians will also consume or eat dairy products, and some of them will also eat eggs and maybe even fish and shellfish as well. I think a lot of vegetarians just don't eat meats like beef, chicken, or pork, but I think they will eat a lot of other things. So for me, I think vegetarians, I think the diet is not, I think it's actually pretty good for most people if it's not too strict. Like if you can still eat eggs and fish, I think the vegetarian diet is okay. I think you can get enough protein. However, vegetarian does not equal vegan. Vegans are kind of like extreme vegetarians, right? So of course, vegans are the type of people that only eat vegetables and fruits. They will not eat any animal products, so no meat, but also no dairy, no cheese, no milk, no yogurt, no seafood, none of that, right? Just the only thing they will eat is something that they can grow, so veggies and fruits. So I think the big problem for a lot of vegans is they often really have a hard time getting enough protein, right? Because they're not eating meat or fish or eggs and stuff like that. So in my opinion, the vegan diet I think is not very healthy. Maybe for a short time it's okay, but I think everybody needs some kind of protein basically. And I know you can get that from beans, but I don't think it can completely replace animal protein. So vegetarian, I think it's probably pretty good as long as you're not too strict. Vegan, yeah, that's cool. You can try it out. Maybe it works for you, but I don't think it's a good idea. Anyhow, that's my own personal opinion. If you're a vegetarian, awesome. If you're a vegan, awesome. I just hope it works for you. Number 6. How can you get children to eat more vegetables? Okay, well, actually, I kind of mentioned 2 different strategies besides what was talked about here. Okay, so when I was growing up, my parents, pretty strict, so they just forced us, right? Is that a nice strategy? No, I guess not. But did it work? Yeah, it worked, right? Because if I didn't eat the vegetables, I wouldn't eat anything, right? My dad would send me to my room, or I have to go outside, or maybe, small smack upside the head, right? Not too much physical abuse, but anyhow. But the other thing we like to do, my wife and I, with our 2-year-old daughter, is we just like to mix vegetables into things that she likes. So right now she likes carbohydrates. She really likes noodles, which she refers to as chulu chulu, and she really likes rice. She likes it a lot. So we just mix veggies into that, and usually that can kind of trick her, and then she'll end up eating some very nutritious, vitamin-rich veggies, right? So that's great. So I think those are 2 good ways you can get kids to eat their veggies. Either you trick them by mixing it into a food they like, or you do what my parents did and you just force your kids to eat the vegetable. You don't care, just do it, right? Okay, number 7. Why do so many children dislike vegetables? Well, the article already talked about that, and I think that's related to this one here. Changes in their DNA make some children think vegetables taste very bitter. So that would be my number 1 answer. A lot of children think veggies are very bitter, and I think all of us are surrounded by lots of other foods, proteins or sweets or carbohydrates that honestly most of the time taste better to us, right? So I think that's why children don't like veggies, because they know there's some other type of food that tastes better. So why can't I eat the food that tastes good, right? I don't want to eat the bitter food. But yeah, they just don't know that vegetables can be really delicious, right? Okay, number 8, what food do you dislike? All right, well, I already talked about the vegetables I dislike, Brussels sprouts, celery, things like that. But what other foods do I dislike? Ooh, I don't know. Yeah, there's quite a few things. I'm not a fussy eater, especially as I've gotten older. I'm much, much less fussy. I can basically eat anything besides Brussels sprouts. What are some foods I don't like? Okay, well, there are some foods I've had in different countries around the world that I did not like very much, although there are also foods that I really liked in other countries. But when I was in Korea, for example, South Korea, I did not like chicken feet very much. Well, it was okay. If it was in a spicy mix, it was not bad. But yeah, I don't really like chicken feet very much at all. I've also had a dish called bo xing tang. Probably mispronouncing that for people who don't know. It's kind of a dog stew. So I had dog stew one time in Korea. Not really a big fan. It wasn't terrible, but yeah, not my cup of tea, so I wouldn't want to eat that again. What are some other things I don't like? And there's a couple of other dishes, but I'm pretty much, I'm a mature adult. I can eat basically anything. Oh, also I don't like squid though. I do not like squid. Squid, yeah, squid and octopus, not a huge fan. Anyhow, number 9, do parents worry too much about their children? Oh, that's a very general question. Do parents worry too much about their children? Parents worry too much about do I worry too much about my kid? I probably do. I do worry about my kid. Yeah, there's so many things to worry about, right? Are they getting enough nutrition? Are they going to be safe when they go outside? Are they socializing enough? Blah, blah, blah. But my daughter's very young still, so I'm not as worried as I used to be. I think when she was a baby, I was much more worried because there's so many things you have to worry about when you have a baby, right? It's a very sensitive time, right? But yeah, do parents worry too much? Probably, yes. Maybe we should all give our children more freedom. Anyhow, number 10, do you know anyone who is a fussy eater? Yeah, sure. My younger brother, when I was a teenager, or when he was a teenager as well, very, very fussy eater. He just liked to eat kind of junk food. So yeah, he ate a lot of hot dogs and ramen noodles and what else did he like? Pizza pops and things like that. But fortunately for him at the time, he was a very athletic guy, so he didn't gain a lot of weight. However, when he hit his 20s and he was still eating junk food, he started to get fat really quickly. So fortunately for him, he did stop his addiction to junk food and eats much healthier foods now, and that's good for him, right? Anyhow, guys, that's about it for this listening activity. I think we really need to move on to the next listening activity, which is also related to foods, but this one is more related to cooking. And it should be interesting because it's from, or the person who will be talking to us is Gordon Ramsay, right? And I hope you guys know who Gordon Ramsay is because he is probably one of the most famous chefs in the world. And you can find his TV program on basically anywhere. He's huge in the United Kingdom, he's really huge in the United States, and he's big in basically every English-speaking country. He owns a chain of restaurants around the world. I think generally he is well known as being one of the best chefs alive today, and he has a lot of very popular TV programs like Hell's Kitchen, or this other one where he helps restaurants or hotels improve themselves. But yeah, Gordon Ramsay, he's actually a pretty funny guy, a very good chef, but he does use a lot of bad language as well. But that's part of what makes him very popular, is that he uses a lot of bad language in his TV programs, which makes it more interesting. So guys, let's take a look at this one here if you can find it. Cuisine, Gordon's useful cooking tips. So sounds like Gordon is going to give us some tips on how to cook, which is useful because I'm not a great cook and I want to know how to cook better. So let's take a look at our warm-up questions. How often do you cook? So you guys think about it. How often do you cook? Now, maybe you're a university student or around university age, right? And you're living by yourself. So maybe you cook 3 times a day. You cook for yourself. Congratulations, good for you, right? When I was a university student, I did the same thing. I had to cook everything for myself. Usually not very good quality because you don't have a lot of money, right? Now, nowadays, how often do I cook? I don't really cook that much anymore. Now you might be thinking like, oh, that's terrible, Allan. You rely on your wife to do all the cooking. Ooh, what a conservative guy, right? Yeah, that is terrible. But anyhow, no, my wife is pretty good at cooking. I'd say she's one of the best cooks I know. So the deal we have is that she does the cooking and I throw out the garbage, do the dishes, yada yada. But I still cook, I'd say 3 times a week. I cook dinner, about 3 times a week. What I cook, is it the best? No, usually I cook something kind of easy. And for me, something easy to cook is pasta. Trust me, if you don't make pasta by yourself, pasta is really good for university age students too. Things like spaghetti or carbonara or chicken alfredo is really simple. It's really not that hard. So yeah, I cook about 3 times a week. And my daughter likes my cooking because she likes noodles and she likes sauces. So that works out pretty well. But I don't really like my own cooking very much. I think it's pretty bad. Okay, number 2. How did you learn to cook? Oh, that is actually not a bad question. So how about you guys? How did you guys learn to cook? Okay, well, there were 2, I would say, major points in my life where I learned how to cook. The first one occurred in high school, junior high school, grade 9, when I was 14. Now, we were kind of lucky in my high school in Canada because we had elective courses. So we were allowed to choose between a list of different courses for things we could have. Of course, we had to take English and take math and take history and science, right? But actually with science, we had a couple of different choices. Like you could take biology, or you could take chemistry or physics. So I chose biology and chemistry. But we also got to take something like, metal work, or working with mechanics or computers, or environmental studies and this kind of stuff. But you had to sign up for them. And I was kind of lazy at the time, and I thought I can sign up later, it doesn't matter. And I went to go sign up, but I went in on the last day, and I was like, okay, I'll go in the woodworking class. And then the person said, oh, sorry, there is no more spots. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll go in the metalwork class. No more spots for that either. I was like, oh my God. And my younger brother and I went together, because we were only separated by 1 year. Anyhow. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll take the mechanics class. I'm like, no more spots. And I was like, oh my God, what do you have spots for? He said, we only have spots for cooking class and for sewing class, right? Ooh. So I'm like, okay, I'll go between the 2. Obviously, I'm gonna choose cooking. Not obviously, but yeah, I'm like, okay, I'll sign up for cooking. And then my younger brother was like, okay, I'll sign up for cooking too. And he said, oh, sorry, actually, your brother just took the last spot. So yeah, my younger brother, he got put into sewing class. And I hope you guys know what sewing is. I can't really mimic, like fixing clothes or preparing clothes, right? So he was really, really upset. But when he went to the class, he found out that he was the only guy in the sewing class, right? Everybody else was female. So then he was actually pretty happy. But anyhow, I went into cooking class with 2 other guys, and that was a really good class for me. At first I thought, oh, this is so stupid, I don't want to do this. But I learned how to cook some pretty good dishes in the cooking class, so it was very useful. And then later, of course, when I turned 18, I have to leave my hometown, go to university, blah, 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 and live in a dormitory. Of course, at that point, because of necessity, because I had to improve my cooking skills, and also I had to be good at cooking cheap things, because I didn't have a lot of money. So yeah, I think I was pretty good at cooking when I was in university and afterwards, but then somehow, more recently, my cooking skills gone downhill. Not sure why, but anyhow. Okay guys, but our third warm-up question, have you ever heard of Gordon Ramsay? So I hope you guys have heard of Gordon Ramsay. Like I said, he's a very interesting person. He's quite the character, he's got quite the personality. So after this, if you're interested, I highly recommend checking out some Gordon Ramsay, maybe cooking programs, or like Hell's Kitchen. He can be scary when he yells at people. He's a little bit scary. But anyhow. Alright guys, let's take a look at our list of key vocabulary terms here. We've got a huge list, and the first word here is tip, right? Now actually, I remember talking about tip maybe last week or the week before, but if you guys were not here, tip can be a verb and it can be a noun, right? As a verb, it has actually two meanings. To tip somebody, you give them a tip. You give them a small amount of money, or maybe not so small, in order to thank them for their service, right? So in Canada and America, we have a tipping culture. You go to a restaurant, you like it, you give 10, 15, or 20% to the waiter or waitress, the server, whatever, and that is a tip, right? Here's a tip, here's $10, right? But a tip can also mean like a small piece of advice, right? If I say to you guys, like as an English teacher, I might say, here's a tip. A good way to study English is to watch TV in English and to watch the same TV episode or the same movie multiple times. And another good tip is to try to mimic the people in that movie or on that TV show, right? That's a good tip, maybe a hot tip, right? That's a good idea. But as a verb, tip can also mean to put something out of balance, like to tip over. But I think the tip that we're gonna be looking at here, guys, like Gordon's useful cooking tips, I think he's gonna be giving us some cooking advice, some pieces of advice to help us be better cooks. So thank you, Gordon. Anyhow, process. What is process? Okay, so a process is a noun, of course, and process is similar to like some kind of plan or some kind of strategy, right? A step-by-step guide to doing something, right? Step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Step 3, do that. You know, step 1, cut the vegetables. Step 2, boil the vegetables. Step 3, add some spice or something, right? So process is like a plan or a series of steps. Okay, peel. Okay, kind of a useful cooking verb. To peel something. To peel something basically means to take the skin off. Maybe a vegetable or a fruit. So of course you guys know when you get potatoes have that kind of dirty outside, right? So you gotta wash it and then you gotta use kind of a special, well, a knife, maybe a spoon, some people use a spoon, or a peeler, right? And you peel the skin off of the potato, right? But you might also do this for other vegetables or some fruits, right? Like a banana, of course, you will peel the skin of the banana off of it before you eat it, right? You don't want to eat the banana skin. It might look good, but certainly doesn't taste good, right? Okay, so there's peel. And then we have stalk. Ooh, okay, now stalk. Stalk's got quite a few different meanings, right? Now there's a verb meaning to stalk, right? Which means actually to put something in like a shelf or in place, to stock it, right? But as a noun, stock generally has two different meanings, right? There's the stock market, right? And the stock market has a list of different companies that are on that stock market and you can invest in stocks, right? Like if I think Disney is gonna do really well this year, if I think the stock is going to go up and then I'm gonna make a lot of money, I will invest in Disney stock, right? So that's one meaning to stock. But in regards to cooking and in regards to food, there's a different meaning to stock. Now, we sometimes say chicken stock or beef stock. Chicken or beef stock or whatever kind of stock is either in a powder form or usually in a cube form, or actually it can be in a liquid form as well. And it will have the essence or basically the flavor of that kind of animal. So if you buy, my wife and I often buy beef stock, right? And it comes in these small cubes and we'll put it into a soup to give that soup kind of a beefy flavor. Or when I'm making spaghetti, and this is a good tip actually, especially for university students, because spaghetti, it's cheap, tastes pretty good. When you're making spaghetti sauce, take a cube of beef stock, maybe cut it in half, and boom, throw it in your spaghetti. Your spaghetti will taste much better. It will be richer, more flavorful, and full of beef flavor. Yum yum, right? So that's what stock is. Anyhow, next one we have here is flesh. Okay, so flesh is basically what you see right here. This is my flesh, right? My skin, the skin and the muscles, right? But we also use this when we talk about, I don't know, vegetables or fruit or meat products. When you cut into them, you can see the flesh inside, right? So when you cut into a banana, right? Let's say you cut a banana in half. The outside, the skin of the banana is yellow, but the flesh of the banana is white, right? Or potato, the skin is brown, but the flesh is white, right? So that's what flesh is, like the inside, what it looks like on the inside. Next one we have is inside out. Wow, okay, well that sounds funny. Inside out. Sometimes we say to turn something inside out. So actually I'll write that down here. To turn something inside out. Or you can just say it is inside out. So this happens to you all the time, maybe once or twice a week, right? You go to put your socks on and then you realize they're the wrong way around. You realize they're inside out. You need to turn it inside out. Boop, and change it, right? So if something is inside out, it's like the wrong way around, right? Or maybe you put on a t-shirt or an undershirt, right? But it's the wrong way around, right? And you gotta take it up, out, or off, and turn it inside out and put it back on. So that's inside out. Next term we have here is sensitive skin. Sensitive skin. Okay, now first off, the adjective sensitive is really useful, right? If you're very sensitive, if we describe you as being sensitive, that means you're very kind of particular, right? Or in a certain way, kind of weak. Like if you're a sensitive person, you watch a movie, right? And the main character is crying and you start crying too. You're like, oh, what happened to the Disney princess? Where, right? Now that's okay if you watch a really scary or very dramatic movie. If you're crying, that's fine, right? But if you're an adult and you're watching a Disney movie and you start crying, you're a pretty sensitive person. But what we're talking about here, guys, is sensitive skin. If you have sensitive skin, that means that your skin is easily affected by something outside, right? Like if I have sensitive skin and I bump my arm on the board and it turns into a big bruise or it turns bright red, that would mean I have really sensitive skin. Fortunately, I don't have very sensitive skin. But yeah, it means if something is sensitive, it means it changes very quickly and reacts to outside stimulus very easily, right? Like, I have a friend who has orange hair, naturally orange hair. He's not a clown, because his parents are both from Wales in the United Kingdom, and Wales is well known for having a high number of people who have red hair and orange hair, but he's got orange hair and super white skin, like a ghost, like very, very white. So he actually had very, very sensitive skin. So like in the summertime when it became very sunny, he could not get a tan. He cannot turn brown at all. It doesn't happen. What happens to him if he stayed out in the sun, it would just give him a huge sunburn. He'd just turn kind of pink and red, and then it would really, really hurt because he had sensitive skin. And I think it's partly because of his orange hair. Anyhow, guys, next word we have here is a good action verb. It is squeeze. So when you're cooking something, you might have to squeeze something. Squeeze something is just, like this action, like if I am squeezing the pen, right? I'm gonna squeeze the pen, right? Or, maybe you're preparing a glass of water and you like a little bit of lemon flavor in your water. So you get a lemon and you squeeze it to get some of the lemon juice into your water, right? Or you squeeze a fresh orange because you want to make some delicious orange juice, right? So you squeeze it. Now squeeze, that is the physical meaning of squeeze, right? You are physically squeezing something. There is another way to use squeeze as well. Squeeze somebody can be like to mentally or emotionally squeeze somebody, kind of push them, right? Get them into a corner and you squeeze them, right? And try to get money out of them. That's not a good thing though. Anyhow, guys, so that is squeeze. Next one we got here, another good one is scoop. To scoop. Scoop, basically, I wish I had a spoon right now, because when you're scooping something, usually you have a spoon or you have a ladle. So, like, let's say we usually use scoop when we talk about serving ice cream, right? You've got your bucket or container of ice cream and you scoop out the ice cream. So it's kind of this action to scoop, right? And that's all it is. Not really a useful term, but anyhow, that's scoop. Next term here is crunchy. Crunchy, great adjective used to describe food, right? So some foods are crunchy, and if a food is crunchy, it makes that kind of sound, that kind of crunch sound, you know. That is crunchy, right? So of course, potato chips are crunchy. Fried chicken can be crunchy. Some vegetables, yeah, like celery, even though I hate it, yeah, celery is crunchy. If any kind of food gives you that kind of snapping, cracking, crunching sound, we describe it as crunchy. If I'm thinking about Japanese cuisine, for example, tempura is crunchy, yum yum, right? If we're thinking of foods in America or Canada, yeah, like I said, potato chips are crunchy, chicken is crunchy. Yeah, sometimes pizza can be crunchy if it's cooked a certain way. Anyhow, so that's crunchy. Next term we have is texture. Okay, now texture. We use this word a lot when we talk about how something tastes. And usually when you're unfamiliar with a food or you're trying a food for the first time, texture will be really, really important. So I think for a lot of like non-Japanese people, for example, when they try sushi for the first time, one of the big problems for them is the texture, the feeling, right? So when we talk about texture, we're talking about the physical feeling of the food when it's in your mouth, right? How it feels inside your mouth. So like when you try sushi, like raw fish for the first time, the texture for a lot of Western people is very different from the foods we eat, right? It's raw, it's a little bit slimy or slippery, and usually for a lot of people the first time they don't really like sushi because they never had that feeling in their mouth, right? That texture is kind of strange for them. Another example I can give is like sometimes in Korea or Japan also. So for example, I like dried seaweed. I think dried seaweed is pretty awesome. It tastes great. Really good to mix with rice. Delicious. But when seaweed is in a soup, like if you're in Korea and you have seaweed soup, guk, or if you're in Japan and you have miso soup and they put some seaweed in it, the texture is kind of, slimy. Ugh. I don't like the texture. The flavor, I'm okay with. The texture, no, right? Although I'm sure there's lots of Western foods that you guys would think like the texture is weird too. Anyhow. Oh, next word, raw. Okay, we just talked about raw. So raw is an adjective. Raw basically means uncooked, right? Not cooked. So just to make that very, very clear though, let me write that down. Raw equals uncooked, or basically not cooked. So of course, sushi is raw, or sashimi is raw. There aren't many meat dishes in Canada or America that are raw. I'm trying to think right now. Are there any? No, there are no meat or fish dishes in Canada and America that are served raw. But if you go to Europe, I think there are some raw dishes like beef tartare. Beef tartare is raw beef, usually with an egg in it. It's actually pretty good. I'm thinking Japan, you guys probably eat that too sometimes. But yeah, raw foods. Some people really don't like raw foods. Those people tend to be Western people because we usually just stick to cooked foods, but it depends on the person, right? I think with experience you can get used to raw foods, and I love sushi now, so anyhow. Alright, next term we have here is wrinkle. Okay, wrinkle. Ooh, that's a tough word. Now usually when I say, hey, you got a wrinkle, the meaning is just a wrinkle on your head or your face, right? as you get older, you will develop wrinkles on your forehead or around your eyes or somewhere else on your face, right? So a wrinkle is basically like a line, right? A line on your face that you develop as you get older. A lot of older people have many, many wrinkles, right? And sometimes we can change this into an adjective. You can say wrinkly, right? Like, John has a wrinkly face. That's something you wouldn't want to say to John. It's kind of rude, right? Usually we don't point out like, hey, you have a lot of wrinkles on your face. But these ones around the eyes, actually, we have kind of an interesting name for them. Call them crow's feet, because they usually come out kind of like in a pattern like a crow's foot, right? So anyhow, wrinkles, yeah, and don't worry if you have a lot of wrinkles, you know, things happen, right? People get older, who cares? Anyhow, guys, the next thing here we have is to be twice as quick. To be twice as quick. So to be twice as quick means to be 2 times the speed of something, right? If I said to you, you must be twice as quick, you must be 2 times faster than you usually are, right? So don't just go like this, go like this, right? To be twice as quick. So that's not too hard. And last term we have here for a key vocab is marinade. Now, marinade looks like a French word. I believe that originally it is. What is a marinade? Well, a marinade is really useful for cooking. Marinade is basically like, how can you say? Kind of like a sauce, right? So it's a sauce that we prepare and then we put usually meat, could be veggies or something else, seafood. And then we put the meat or the sauce in the marinade and we let it sit for a long time, right? Because we want the flavor of the marinade to go into the meat or the seafood or the veggie, right? And actually that brings up kind of another useful word, and that is infuse, right? We want the meat to be infused with the flavor of the marinade, right? So my dad used to like barbecuing sometimes, and he had a special recipe for ribs, right? Pork ribs. And the day before he would barbecue the ribs though, he would prepare a marinade, and it was supposed to be Hawaiian style. So he would use, I think, some soya sauce, ketchup, Worcester sauce, and pineapple. Yeah, pineapple. And then he would make this marinade, right? Like kind of this sauce, and put it in like a bowl or a long saucer. And then he would put the ribs in that, and then he would leave that in the refrigerator for, 24 hours, right? And then, of course, the marinade would get infused into the meat. So when you cook it, it's got that wonderful Hawaiian flavor. Yeah. Anyhow, so that is marinade, and I think that's definitely a French word. All right, guys, so lots of good key vocabulary here. Marinade, crunchy, stalk, etc. So what we should do now, though, we're going to be heading into the break fairly soon here. But why don't we listen to this one time first, and then we'll talk about it a little bit, and then we'll take a break, and we'll finish this after the break. All right, guys, so of course I also recommend, actually watching this. It's from YouTube, Gordon's Useful Cooking Tips. All right, so let's check this out, and here we go.
If you have fruit that's not perfectly ripe, the tip is to put a banana in a paper bag, then add your unripe fruit. Put it in a dark place, and the banana will speed up the ripening process of the other fruit. You had to peel and cut a mango the easy way. Holding its stalk end up, cut either side of the stone, cut all the way into the flesh, making squares without cutting through the skin. Then turn it inside out and carefully cut your pieces off. A great tip to prevent burning sensitive skin when working with chilies.
To get rid of that spice and that heat on your fingers, a little bit of lemon, squeeze a little bit of lemon juice, and that instantly gets rid of the heat. Fresh lemon juice.
For perfect boiled potatoes, always start them off in cold water and never boiling water. This way, by the time the centres of the potatoes are cooked, the outside won't be falling apart. My tip to get the flesh out of a kiwi is to simply cut the fruit in half and scoop it out with a teaspoon. Try it, it really works.
I absolutely love these peppers. Now, they have the most amazing sweet, delicious flavour with a really nice crunchy texture. And the most exciting thing about the peppers is that they're just as delicious raw or cooked. To identify the perfect pepper, it must be smooth and firm and not a wrinkle inside. Now, how to cut the perfect pepper. Stalk off, pepper down, and get the knife, start from the top and slice all the way around. Basically, we're going to be slicing around the seeds. Look, no faffing around, like this little perfect Christmas tree of seeds, and you haven't got the mess all over your board, and more importantly, it's twice as quick. Discard that. Now, we're going to cut it into a julienne. Flatten the pepper, skin side down onto the board, because it's a lot easier to slice through the pepper, and just lift the knife up and down. And basically, julienne is a chef's word for strips. These are absolutely perfect for sautéing, and that's what we're looking for there. Crunchy, delicious, and more importantly, no seeds. Beautiful.
A great tip to check if a pineapple is ripe is to pull a leaf out from the top. If it comes away easily, it's ripe and ready for slicing. A great tip for getting meat or fish to cook faster is to score it, which allows the heat to penetrate quicker. This also allows mayonnaise to be absorbed more deeply.
Alright, okay, yeah, so, wow, that was like a 2.5 minute long clip. Of course, Gordon is speaking really quickly, so we're definitely gonna have to listen to that again. Actually, what I think we'll do is we'll listen to that again, and then actually, I think I'm gonna read it because the audio quality is maybe not the best, right? So I might read it after, but actually, that was kind of useful. There were a lot of really good cooking tips there. And some of those that I really didn't know. Most of those maybe not too useful for me, but the one about cutting the pepper, yeah, that one was really useful. Also the one for marinating meat also seemed to be pretty useful. So we'll take a look at that in more detail after the break. But yeah, we'll take a break first, but before we do that, yeah, there was a lot of good stuff here. The very first one, of course, he was talking about how if your fruit is not ripe, if your fruit is maybe too young, it's not ready to eat, you take a banana, you put it in a paper bag, then you put the other fruits that are not ripe into the bag, and then you said put it in a dark place. And then the idea there was that because the banana hopefully is ripe, somehow it will help the other fruits become riper sooner than if you hadn't done that. So I had no idea about that, but that sounds pretty interesting. I guess I could try that out sometime. Oh yeah, and he did bring up the word wrinkle. Now, when I talked about the word wrinkle, I was just talking about a wrinkle on somebody's face, right? Or on our skin, the line, right? But remember, wrinkle doesn't have to just be that, because he said, you know, if you see a pepper and it has a wrinkle on it. So wrinkles can also be like lines on a vegetable or a fruit, right? And if a fruit or vegetable has a lot of wrinkles, of course that means it's old. That means maybe it's more than ripe, maybe it's too old, right? Maybe it's expired. Maybe you should throw it in the garbage. Anyhow, guys, let's take a quick break. After the break, we're gonna listen to Ramsay, or Gordon Ramsay, one more time. Then I'm gonna actually read this, and then we'll look at our discussion questions and then move on a little bit more. Okay, so I'll see you guys again in about 10 minutes. Okay everybody, welcome back to PST Live. We're gonna listen to that Gordon Ramsay useful cooking tips one more time. Then I'm probably gonna read over this because I think Gordon's talking pretty quickly and I'm not so sure about the audio quality. Anyhow, let's listen one more time. Let's get some good tips, right? Okay, so here we go.
If you have fruit that's not perfectly ripe, the tip is to put a banana in a paper bag, then add your unripe fruit. Put it in a dark place and the banana will speed up the ripening process of the other fruit. You have to peel and cut a mango the easy way. Holding its stalk end up, cut either side of the stone, cut all the way into the flesh, making squares without cutting through the skin. Then turn it inside out and carefully cut your pieces off. A great tip to prevent burning sensitive skin when working with chilies.
To get rid of that spice and that heat on your fingers, a little bit of lemon, squeeze a little bit of lemon juice, and that instantly gets rid of the heat. Fresh lemon juice.
For perfect boiled potatoes, always start them off in cold water and never boiling water. This way, by the time the centres of the potatoes are cooked, the outside won't be falling apart. My tip to get the flesh out of a kiwi is to simply cut the fruit in half and scoop it out with a teaspoon. Try it, it really works.
I absolutely love these peppers. Now, they have the most amazing sweet, delicious flavour with a really nice crunchy texture. And the most exciting thing about the peppers is that they're just as delicious, raw or cooked. To identify the perfect pepper, it must be smooth and firm and not a wrinkle inside. Now, how to cut the perfect pepper. Stalk off, pepper down, and get the knife, start from the top and slice all the way around. Basically, we're going to be slicing around the seeds. Look, no faffing around, like this little perfect Christmas tree of seeds, and you haven't got the mess all over your board, and more importantly, it's twice as quick. Discard that. Now, we're going to cut it into a julienne. Flatten the pepper, skin side down onto the board, because it's a lot easier to slice through the pepper, and just lift the knife up and down. And basically, julienne is a chef's word for strips. These are absolutely perfect for sautéing, and that's what we're looking for there. Crunchy, delicious, and more importantly, no seeds. Beautiful.
A great tip to check if a pineapple is ripe is to pull a leaf out from the top. If it comes away easily, it's ripe and ready for slicing. A great tip for getting meat or fish to cook faster is to score it, which allows the heat to penetrate quicker. This also allows mayonnaise to be absorbed more deeply.
Alright guys, so we listened to Gordon's useful cooking tips one more time. Like I said, I think he's speaking pretty quickly, so I'm going to read through this here so you guys can listen one more time. Of course, you guys also have these blanks here, and you need to try to fill in the blanks. It'll probably be a lot easier for you guys to fill them in when I'm reading this, right? But I'm not gonna read too slowly. I'm gonna try to read at a medium fast pace. So here we go. Let me read this for you guys. If you have fruit that's not perfectly ripe, the tip is to put a banana in a paper bag, then add your unripe fruit. Put it in a dark place and the banana will speed up the ripening process of the other fruit. You have to peel and cut a mango the easy way. Holding its stalk end up, cut either side of the stone. Cut all the way into the flesh, making squares without cutting through the skin. Then turn it inside out and carefully cut your pieces off. A great tip to prevent burning sensitive skin when working with chilies, to get rid of that spice and that heat on your fingers. A little bit of lemon. Squeeze a little bit of lemon juice and that instantly gets rid of the heat. Fresh lemon juice. For perfectly boiled potatoes, always start them off in cold water and never boiling water. This way, by the time the centers of the potatoes are cooked, the outside won't be falling apart. My tip to get the flesh out of a kiwi is to simply cut the fruit in half and scoop it out with a teaspoon. Try it, it really works. I absolutely love these peppers. Now, they have the most amazing, sweet, delicious flavor with a really nice, crunchy texture. And the most exciting thing about the peppers is that they are just as delicious raw or cooked. To identify the perfect pepper, it must be smooth and firm and not a wrinkle in sight. Now, how to cut the perfect pepper. Stalk off, pepper down, and get the knife. Start from the top and slice all the way around. Basically, we're gonna be slicing around the seeds. Look, no faffing around. Like this little perfect Christmas tree of seeds. And you haven't got the mess all over your board. And more importantly, it's twice as quick. Discard that. Now, we're going to cut it into a julienne. Flatten the pepper, skin side down onto the board, because it's a lot easier to slice through the pepper. And just lift the knife up and down. Basically, julienne is a chef's word for strips. These are absolutely perfect for sautéing, and that's what we're looking for there. Crunchy and delicious, and more importantly, no seeds. Beautiful. A great tip to check if a pineapple is ripe is to pull a leaf out from the top. If it comes away easily, it's ripe and ready for slicing. A great tip for getting meat or fish to cook faster is to score it, which allows the heat to penetrate quicker. This also allows marinades to be absorbed more deeply. Okay guys, so I also read over it. I hope that you guys were able to fill in some of the blanks when you guys were listening to Gordon. But like I said, I think he speaks quite quickly, right? And if you actually watch the video of him with these tips, you'll notice that Gordon, he's a real man of action. He's always kind of like moving around, and he acts very quickly and he speaks very quickly. But anyhow, hopefully me reading it helped you guys out. And let's take a look at the words that go in the blanks here. So let me erase this and let's go over those blanks. Okay, so number one, guys, it says if you have fruit that's not perfectly what? Okay, now this comes from our key vocab. No, this does not come from our key vocab, but actually this is a word we talked about in the first listening exercise actually, and it starts with a R, and we're talking about for vegetables and fruits. If they're ready to eat, they are, starts with an R, they are ripe. So that's the first one we're looking for there. If you have fruit that's not perfectly ripe, the tip he had was put the banana that is ripe into a paper bag, then put the unripe fruits in with the banana, and then put it somewhere dark, and the banana will help the ripening process, right, for those other fruits. Anyhow, moving on to number two, you have to blank a mango the easy way. You have to what a mango the easy way. Now, these two words here, well, one of the words is from our key vocab list. Of course, if you got a mango, you want to remove the skin, right? So in that case, you need to peel. And he said peel and also cut, right? You want to peel and cut the mango so you get the delicious mango flesh, right? Okay, number three, guys. What do we got? Holding its stalk end up, cut either side of the stone, cut all the way into the... Now actually, I just gave you guys the word. It starts with F. The inside of a fruit or vegetable or meat or human or whatever is flesh, right? The flesh of the mango. Flesh, making squares without cutting through the skin. Then turn it inside out and something, your piece is off for number four. And he said, carefully cut. Carefully cut. Because of course you want to be careful because you don't want to cut yourself. Okie dokie, guys. Number five. Bump, ba, bump, ba, bump. Okay, it says, a great tip to prevent burning sensitive skin when working with chilies, right? To get rid of that spice and that heat on your fingers, you need a little bit of lemon. And then you need to do this action. Can you guys remember? What was that action verb? Right? You need to squeeze the orange or squeeze the lemon in this case, right? So we're looking for squeeze. And there we go. What am I doing here? Yeah, so there we go. There's squeeze. Okay, and moving on, guys. Yeah, it looks weird, but no, it is right. Number 6. Okay. Number 6. Okay, he says something to get the flesh out of a kiwi. So kiwi fruit, of course, and he was talking about you cut it in half and then you do something else. He said, my tip, right? My tip to get the flesh out of a kiwi is to simply cut the fruit in half, and then what do you say? So for number 7, we're actually looking for 3 words here. So you cut it in half, and then what was this action, right? Usually you do this with ice cream, but you scoop it out. Scoop it out. Scoop it out with a teaspoon. Try it. It really works. All right, good tip. But actually, I already did that. I thought that was kind of obvious. Anyhow, maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm actually a cooking master. Okay, moving on to number 8 though. He starts talking about peppers, right? He says, I absolutely love these peppers. Now, they have the most amazing, sweet, delicious flavor with a nice, what? Now, 2 words. One starting with a C, and then one starting with a T, right? He said they have a nice kind of, can you guys remember, what was that word? It's an adjective. They have crunchy. They have a nice crunchy, and then the feeling, right? Texture. They have a nice crunchy texture. And the most exciting thing is, Now we're gonna move on to number 9. It says, now, how to cut the perfect pepper. Stalk off, right? Take the stalk off, pepper down, and get the knife, start from the top. And what is that action with a knife? Now, actually, this one here is not here. Now, you might think, oh, well, it could be chop. Yeah, that's a good guess, but actually it's not chop, it's slice, right? When you have a knife and you are cutting something, there's cut, there's slice, there's chop, right? But there's a slight difference between them, right? Usually when we're thinking about chop, it's, chop, 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 chop. Slice is more of a kind of slower, more deliberate action, right? And cut is just general. Okay, anyhow, you will slice all the way round. Now, number 10. What do we have here? Like this little perfect tree or Christmas tree of seeds, and you haven't got the blank all over your board. Well, of course, when you're cutting a pepper, if you don't follow these rules, and actually this was a really good tip for me, because usually when I cut a pepper, I cut the stem out and I pull it out, then I cut it in half, and then I kind of remove all the seeds, right? And that's kind of annoying, right? Now, if you follow Gordon Ramsay's tips, you won't have all those seeds, right? And if you have all those seeds all over your cutting board or all over your counter board, whatever, of course that's gonna make a big mess, right? And of course nobody wants a big mess. Anyhow, further down here in number 11, and he's talking about cutting the peppers, right? And he said, and basically, julienne is a chef's word for strips. Now, strips is not a word that we looked at before. It's not terribly useful, but strips are usually defined as like long, thin pieces of something. So when he's cutting the pepper, he's making these kind of long, thin pieces. He's cutting the pepper into strips, right? Or if you go to a Western style restaurant here, you might want to order chicken strips, right? And usually that's deep fried chicken, but in a long kind of strip, right? Anyhow, all right guys, so that's strip, and we got just one more with number 12. And actually this word does come from our key vocab list, and he was talking about meat, right? And he says, a great tip for getting meat or fish to cook faster is to score it. Now, actually, I've never heard that term before, to score something. So he's using score here as a verb. So this is really interesting for me. Now, you have to keep in mind, and I'm sure you could kind of hear it, but Gordon Ramsay has an accent because he is English. He is from the United Kingdom, right? So maybe, of course, sometimes you guys know that there are differences between British or British English, and American Canadian English, and this might be one. Of course, the accent's different, but also the dialect. So sometimes they use different words than we use, and this might be one. So to score fish or meat, what he was doing in the video there was he was making small cuts into the meat or small cuts into the fish. And he was doing that because he says it allows the heat to penetrate quicker. So heat can get into the meat a lot faster, so it will cook faster. But this also allows something to be absorbed more deeply. It allows some kind of sauce, but it's not a sauce, it's a marinade to get in more deeply. Okay, so yeah, the word we were looking for there is marinade. Alright guys, so we got all the blanks. Again, all these words are pretty useful, especially when you're talking about cooking and you're talking about food, especially things like crunchy, but also actions like slice and to scoop and tips and squeeze and cut, flesh, peel, ripe, etc., etc. All this stuff here is really, really good. If you still don't understand these words, try to rewatch the video if possible, or look up these words yourself at home and try to make sure you understand them, because if you do want to, when we talk to people in foreign countries, if you come here to Canada or America, one of the things that kind of connects all of us is food and cooking, right? And it's useful to be able to talk about how you prepare a certain dish or how you cook a certain dish, right? It's a good way to break the ice and to get to know people. Anyhow guys, the last thing we have here is just some more discussion questions. So I'm going to read them out. Maybe you guys think about how you would answer at home. I'll give my own example here. And then I think the last thing we might do today is take a look at some phrasal verbs, which should be interesting. But yeah, I'm just going to erase this here. We'll take a look at our first discussion question. It says, did you already know any of these tips? Okay, now, did you guys know any of these useful cooking tips? Now, I'm going to take a look through these tips really quickly and tell you which ones I already knew and which ones were completely new for me. So the first one about the fruit though, I didn't know that. That's actually a pretty cool tip. So yeah, you take a ripe banana, then you put it in a brown paper bag, and then of course you put the unripe fruit in with that banana, you put it in a dark place, and that banana will help your unripe fruits ripen faster so you can eat them. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that tip, so I didn't know that one. The mango tip, I don't eat a lot of mango, so this is not very useful for me. Actually, I think I would have done this anyhow. The sensitive skin tip, wow, yeah, I didn't know that one either. If you have sensitive skin and you have chilies on them, then you want to squeeze a lemon, so you can squeeze some lemon juice onto your hand or whatever. Didn't know that one. I think actually the only one I already knew, basically, was the kiwi one. I thought that was just kind of common knowledge. Cut the kiwi in half and then scoop it out with a small spoon. So that one I did know. Everything else here is kind of new for me. And actually it's a pretty good tip, especially the one about cutting the pepper. That's useful. And for me also, the one about scoring or cutting, making cuts into fish or meat so that the marinade will get into there more deeply and then it'll taste better. Yeah, I didn't know that one, so that's actually kind of useful. Okay, number 2. Do you get stressed out when cooking, or does it relax you? So that's a personal question for you guys. Does cooking stress you out, or does it relax you? Well, how do you feel? Now, for me, cooking kind of stresses me out, and I guess that's why I'm not such a great cook. I think I used to be pretty good, but nowadays I feel like, there's a little bit of pressure, right? there's a time constraint, usually, which means I have limited time. Like, you know, maybe my daughter's really hungry and it's already 7 or 7:30 and I'm cooking something and I'm thinking, oh my god, I gotta get this cooked as quickly as possible because I gotta get my daughter some food so she won't freak out, right? So yeah, I'm a little bit stressed when I'm cooking. I feel like I don't have a lot of time, and I also feel like, you know, when I'm cooking, like, is this the right way to do this? I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe this will taste bad. So yeah, it does, honestly, it does stress me out a bit. I'm guessing that for people who cook at home and who are good cooks, I hope it's kind of a relaxing thing for you guys to do. I think anybody that works in a kitchen for a restaurant, I do know that lots of restaurants, you know, are pretty... Oh, Hitomi. Hi, Hitomi. What is marinade? Oh, good question. Okay, so like I said before, marinade is like the sauce, right? That you put the meat in. To marinate is the verb, right? So that's a good question, Hitomi. Marinate. So marinate is to put meat or fish in a marinade. And to let it sit there so that the marinade can go into the meat or the fish. So Hitomi, I hope that helps you out. I hope you understand now. So yeah, marinade, noun, marinate, the verb, right? Anyhow, yeah, if you marinate your meats before cooking them, they always taste so much better. Actually, one of the best things I think I've ever eaten in my life was at my older brother's bachelor party. And, you guys probably don't know, actually I'll write down bachelor party. Because you guys probably don't know what a bachelor party is. Bachelor party. A party that a man has before getting married. Getting married, or otherwise known as going to jail. Yeah. So anyhow, yeah, usually it's traditional in Canada and the United States before, especially for a guy, but also for women too nowadays, before you get married, you have one big last crazy drinking party with all your guy friends, right? Anyhow, so I was at my older brother's bachelor party and we had this chicken that had been marinated in a Vietnamese lemongrass marinade, and it had been marinating for I think like 24 hours. It had marinated for a full day, and the marinade was made up, I think, like fish sauce, soy sauce, some chili, and then lemongrass. A lot of people don't like lemongrass, but I think it's pretty good. It's very common in Vietnamese and Thai cooking. Anyhow, it had been marinating for a whole day, and then we cooked it, and like, mamma mia. It was really delicious. Anyhow, if you want to talk about the female version of bachelor party, so bachelor party is for a man, and in Canada and America, there's a bachelorette party, which is basically the same thing, but for women. Anyhow, Hitomi, I hope that helps. Marinate and marinate. Okay, anyhow, what am I talking about? Blech. Oh yeah, getting stressed when cooking. Okay, we got one more discussion question here, guys, and it says, explain how you like to cook your favorite foods. Try to use some of the vocabulary. Wow. Okay, that's a tough one, guys. How do I cook some of my favorite foods? One of my favorite things to cook is spaghetti. I make kind of spicy spaghetti though. So what I usually do is I dice, and dice is another word for cut. Oh my god, there's so many different words for cut, right? D-I-C-E. Well, dice has two meanings, right? There's dice, playing dice, you know, with a game board. But then there's also dice, the verb. And to dice something means to cut it into small pieces. So I like to dice onions and peppers, garlic, and sometimes chili. And then of course I will take ground beef and I will fry that in the frying pan with some of the garlic. And then I'll add the other vegetables later. And then of course I will start working on my tomato sauce. So for my tomato sauce, for my spaghetti, I will mix celery, even though I hate it, but celery and tomatoes, sometimes some extra onions, and sometimes mushrooms. Yeah, mushrooms if I have them. And then I will cook that on a very low heat for a long time. Then of course later when I think that's done, I will mix them all together and I'll continue to cook it on a very, very low heat. But what I like to do with the veggies when I'm making my sauce is cook it on a low heat until the vegetables basically liquefy, until they turn into a liquid. And then you kind of scoop that out, mix it in with the meat sauce or the meat mixture, and then yeah, you can make pretty good spaghetti. I also like to take probably one of the most famous condiments in, actually I don't need to, well maybe I'll write this down because you guys might want to know anyhow. This is actually just a brand name. Sriracha. I think that's the correct spelling. Or the red rooster sauce. Of course, the most famous condiment here is ketchup, right? After ketchup, probably mayonnaise or mustard, relish, etc. But and salsa. But recently, in the past 10, 15 years, sriracha has become one of the most common household condiments that people rely on to add some spice. So sriracha was invented by, I believe, a Vietnamese American man. And sriracha is basically the same kind of hot sauce that you can find in many Vietnamese restaurants, right? So I like to mix in sriracha with my spaghetti to make it spicy spaghetti. And yum, 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 it's delicious. Oh, also with the noodles, with the spaghetti noodles, I have a few tips. Now, usually when you're boiling big pot of, yes, Hitomi, dice is cut, but it's a little bit different because dice means cut into very small pieces. So let me just write that down. To dice, yeah, cut into small pieces. So yeah, you just want to cut it into very small pieces. Yes, dice is basically cut, but tiny pieces. Chop, 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 chop. So yeah, to dice something. Okay, anyhow, so that's how you make, oh, the noodles. Yeah, sorry. So when you're boiling the water, people usually just take the spaghetti noodles and put them in, but then the bottom, you know, gets soft first, and then you have to kind of push down the hard, dry part, right? So what I usually do is I snap the spaghetti noodles in half and then I put them in, and then always add a pinch of salt into the boiling water. It will make the spaghetti noodles taste a little bit better, and always keep an eye on them because you really want your spaghetti noodles, you don't want your spaghetti noodles to be soggy, right? Now there's a good adjective, soggy. And this adjective is just used for describing foods. But if a food is soggy, it means kind of full of water and too soft, right? You don't want your noodles to be soggy and kind of bleh, right? And it's like tasteless, tastes like garbage, right? What you do want is, and of course we don't really have an English term for this, so we use the Italian term. What you want with your noodles is you want them to be al dente, right? Al dente. Sounds so romantic or so awesome, right? So al dente means cooked but not soft. So we only use the term al dente when we're talking about pasta noodles, right? If you want al dente noodles, that means they're not hard, but they're definitely not soft, right? So you really got to keep an eye on your spaghetti noodles while they're boiling, because you don't want them to be too soft and soggy and it makes everything kind of bleh, right? You want them to be al dente. Okay guys, but that about does it for cuisine, Gordon Ramsay's useful cooking tips. Like I said before, check this out on YouTube again. And if you like Gordon Ramsay, I highly, highly recommend watching some of his other videos. You can find a lot of content on YouTube. He's a pretty cool chef. You might get inspired by him. You'll learn some useful things. And he's pretty funny. Although he does get really angry at people. He uses a lot of bad language actually. But he's a pretty cool guy. Anyhow guys, we did have 2 more things that we were supposed to do in the elective. Of course, we're kind of running out of time now. We only got about 20-ish minutes. So I think what we'll do is we will go over some of these food phrasal verbs, right? And again, all of these terms here are very, very useful. When it comes to cooking, there are a lot of phrasal verbs, right? So let's take a look at these ones here. Oh, and we just talked about boiling. So this is not too bad because we have 2 phrasal verbs that start with boil, right? So let's take a look. Now, you guys can see what the meaning is here and also the example. Now, to boil down, you need to boil down something, right? The meaning of that is to reduce a liquid by cooking to a thick sauce, right? So if you're gonna boil down your, and I do this when I make spaghetti. I've got my tomatoes, my onions, my celery, my mushrooms, whatever, when I'm making my sauce, right? And you're kind of boiling them down so that they turn into a thick liquid, right? Actually, in this case, we're turning solids into a liquid, but usually boil down means turning a liquid, kind of a loose liquid, into a thicker sauce, right? Now, a lot of people add flour when they want to make the sauce thicker, but yeah, you can boil it down usually on a low heat. So the example here is she boiled down the sauce to make it more flavorsome, right? And of course, flavorsome means more full of flavor. It's tastier, it's yummier, it's more delicious, right? Okay, so that's boil down. Now we have boil over. So if you boil over, that means you're basically having a small accident in the kitchen, right? So yeah, the meaning here is to cause liquid to overflow during boiling. Okay, so basically that's like, you're boiling some water. Maybe this happens sometimes when you are boiling pasta noodles or spaghetti noodles, right? Maybe you put too much water in and it starts boiling over. The water starts coming over the top and going down into the oven or the element, right? And then you get that kind of loud sound, right? So yeah, that is boil over, basically an accident. And Allan, you Italy from? No. Oh, tell me? Hey, no, I'm not from, I am not from Italy. No, I'm just from Canada. Actually, my background is English, French, Danish, and German, not Italian. But everybody in Canada, not everybody, but most Canadian people really do enjoy Italian food. So that's why a lot of us can make some very basic Italian dishes like spaghetti or carbonara. Actually, we made lasagna. My wife and I made lasagna last night. So yeah, but actually I know, like Hitomi, I'm guessing you're Japanese. I know in Japan too, that you guys also cook quite a lot of Italian foods, right? Yeah, Italian food's pretty good in Japan. But anyhow. Okay, bolt down. Okay. So to bolt down, this is actually not related to cooking, more to eating. Because to bolt down can mean to eat food very quickly. So when, good dinner time now. Oh, okay, awesome. I hope you're having a good dinner. If you're bolting down, just the image you should have in your mind is somebody like to bolt down. We actually have a lot of other synonyms for bolt down. So give me a second here. I'm just gonna erase some stuff at the top, or the mid top part here. And so we got bolt down. And we know this means basically just eat quickly. But sometimes we also say wolf down, because if you guys imagine a wolf can eat really, really quickly, right? So wolf down has the same meaning, right? I'm gonna wolf down that slice of pizza, and yeah, basically like your mouth is a garbage can, right? You're just blah, 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 you're eating so quickly. Anyhow, so that is bolt down. The example sentence here is not bad. Jeffrey had only 15 minutes for lunch, so he had to bolt it down. So he ate his lunch really quickly because he didn't have enough time. Okay, let's take a look at our next one though. We've got to chop up. Okay, so to chop up just means to cut into pieces, especially with a few sharp blows. So yeah, like I said before, when you're chopping something, you kind of imagine, yeah, you have a knife or a cleaver, and a cleaver is kind of a really big knife, and you kind of bang, 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 and you cut it up, right, into smaller pieces. Mary chopped up the onions for the salad. So oftentimes if I'm cooking, or let's say I'm cooking with my wife might say like, hey, could you chop up that onion, right? And I'll be like, sure, but I'll cut it into not very small pieces. I'll just cut it into pieces. And she might say, oh, those pieces are too big. Could you dice those pieces, right? Or could you dice up those pieces? You can say dice or dice up. Hope that's useful, Hitomi. So chop up. And the example, yeah, Mary chopped up the onions for the salad. So she took the onions and she chop, 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 and chop, 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 and then she put it in the salad. Onions in a salad. Green onions, yes, that's awesome. Just onions in a salad. It doesn't sound good to me. Anyhow, next one we have is, oh, now this is a really, really useful phrasal verb actually. Yes, the element, Hitomi. That's the element is on your oven, right? So if you look at your oven from the top, usually everybody has 4 elements on their oven. So you can say turn on the element, or turn the element onto a high heat, right? But anyhow, guys, cut back. To cut back is usually a term we use when we're talking about going on a diet, or we want to reduce something, because the meaning of cut back is to eat or drink less of a particular thing or food group. So basically cut back is, now I agree with this is true, but it's not just for eat or drink. Basically cut back on something means to reduce the amount of something. Could be the amount of time, right? I'm gonna cut back on watching TV. So I'm still gonna watch TV, but I'm gonna reduce the amount of time that I watch TV, right? Or maybe I realized recently, like I eat too many, what do I eat too much of? Or I drink too much coffee, right? It's not healthy. Well, coffee's okay, but if you drink too much, it's unhealthy, right? So I realized I need to cut back on drinking coffee, right? Or I need to cut back on coffee. So cut back on is really good. The way you use it is to cut back on. No, that looks weird. To cut back on something. So you need the preposition on. To cut back on, maybe people say soda or pop, right? I'm gonna cut back on coffee. Now, for me, I am a smoker. Smoking is bad, it's evil, oh my God, right? So I could say, I need to cut back on smoking, right? I need to reduce the amount of cigarettes I smoke every day, right? Or I need to cut back on TV, or watching TV, or doing something, right? So very, very useful. The example here says, Sue is lactose intolerant and had to cut back on dairy. Now, lactose intolerant. Bleh, what a term, right? If you are lactose intolerant, it means you cannot consume dairy products properly. So if you eat cheese, have yogurt, or drink milk, it will cause you some stomach problems and you'll have to go to the bathroom. Most Western people are lactose tolerant, as in they're not intolerant to lactose, but unfortunately I am lactose intolerant, so I try not to eat too much dairy product. Anyhow, next term guys is to cut out, right? Now the meaning of this is to form or shape by cutting, right? So the example we have here is, after preparing the dough, I cut out the cookies using cutters of different shapes, right? So you guys know, if you're making cookies, right, you kind of make the dough and you put it into a square, but then you have some like shapes, like a circle, and you cut, you cut it out, no problem, and you cut out those shapes, right? Yes, that's the meaning, but actually to cut out has more than just this meaning. If you say to somebody, cut it out, the meaning of this is totally different and actually kind of useful. So let me erase this here. Okay, so to cut out. Now, if we say cut it out, right? That basically means stop. Cut it out, or cut something out, right? Let's say your friend is screaming, right? And it's really annoying and you want your friend to stop. Say, cut the screaming out. Cut the screaming out. Stop screaming is basically the meaning of this, right? Stop screaming. But you know, I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream, right? Ugh. Anyhow, cut the screaming out. Stop screaming. What was I gonna say? So to cut something out can mean to stop it, right? I could also say, for example, I am going to cut out eating pork. I'm gonna cut out eating pork. I'm not gonna eat pork. I'm just gonna stop. So not the same thing as cut back. Cut back, you reduce. Cut out, stop, right? But cut out, just when used when cooking, just means you make a shape using a knife or some kind of, shape, right? Anyhow, guys, last one we got here is to cut up. And to cut up, very, very simple, just means cut something into pieces, right? I'm gonna cut up the onion. So, like I said before though, we have so many different verbs for cut. You need to cut back on spaghetti. Yes, that's true. Thank you for telling me that, Hitomi. I do need to cut back on spaghetti. True. Good sentence. That's correct. But like I was saying, we have so many different verbs for cut, chop, slice, dice. Again, they all basically have a similar meaning, but they're just a little bit different from each other. Okay, guys, and we have a few more phrasal verbs. Oh, to eat out. Very useful phrasal verb, because eat out means to eat outside your home, especially in a restaurant. So if you have a plan to go to a restaurant tonight, which you can't really do in Canada right now, but maybe your friend asks you, hey, are you cooking at home? And you say, no, I'm going to eat out tonight, or I'm eating out tonight. I'm going outside, I'm going to a restaurant, and I will eat something, right? The example you have here is John and Kate eat out at least once a week, and every time they choose a different restaurant. So somebody could ask you guys, how often do you eat out? Oh, I eat out once a week, or I eat out 2 times a week, and whatever it is, right? Okay, so that's eat out, but we also have eat up, right? To eat up means to eat all the food that you have been given. to eat until everything is finished. So this is usually something maybe your grandma or a good friend says to you because they don't want you to waste food or something. They might say like, hey, eat up, like eat all the food, right? I don't want you to leave out broccoli again. It's good for you. Okay, so yeah, Matt needs to eat his broccoli. So maybe Hitomi, maybe you are eating right now. So yeah, eat up, eat all your food. You don't want to waste food. Okay, next one we have here is to pick at. Now the meaning of this is to unwillingly eat only a small amount of food because you are feeling sick, not hungry, or don't like the food. If you are picking at your food, like let's imagine you're eating with chopsticks, right? Or a fork, well, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Maybe you're not feeling well, or you're not really hungry, or you don't really like the food. Lots of kids do this, right? They got their plate and they're like, This we call picking at your food. You're kind of picking at it, right? You're not eating it in large mouthfuls because there's something wrong with you. You don't like it, or you're not feeling well, or you're just like, you're too full. You don't want to eat it, right? So the example we have here is this afternoon, Andy picked at his food because he was feeling sick and could hardly keep anything down. Okay, so yeah, Tony, yeah, me too. I lactose intolerant and no washroom downtown for toilet. Yeah, that's a big problem in Vancouver. There are not a lot of bathrooms downtown in Vancouver. So, well, you have to go to like Starbucks or a restaurant, like preferably a fast food restaurant. Then you could use the bathroom. But yeah, there are no public washrooms downtown. There's a good reason for that though, because I know in Japan and Korea, like, it's not too hard to find a bathroom downtown or a washroom, but in Canada there is. Now, why is there that problem? Well, unfortunately, the reason why is because Vancouver has a fairly high homeless population. So, if we have public washrooms, a lot of homeless people will use that to take a shower or do drugs or do something bad in there. So that's why the city of Vancouver does not want to build public washrooms, because a lot of people will use them in a bad way. So unfortunately, if you are downtown in Vancouver, you gotta go to the bathroom. My recommendation is go to Starbucks or McDonald's. Anyhow, to pick something up. Now to pick something up, the meaning here is to collect something from another place. For example, food to go at a restaurant. And the example here we have is, I'm going to a Greek restaurant to pick up our order. So if you go to a restaurant in order to pick something up, that means you're gonna go there, you're gonna pay, and then you're gonna pick it up, like literally, physically, and then you're gonna take it home, right? So a lot of restaurants in Canada right now are actually closed, right? They're not allowing customers to sit down and stay inside, but a lot of them are open for pickup. So you can go there, pay for your food, and pick it up and take it to go. Now, pig out is another very good phrasal verb. This one quite commonly used. To pig out just means to behave like a pig, which means to eat a lot of food, right? If you say, I pigged out on something, means you ate a lot of that. Like last night, I pigged out on pizza. I ate a lot of pizza last night. It's not true. I made lasagna. Anyhow, and to warm and to heat up, that just means you put it in the microwave, you know, beep, 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 and you make it warm again. And lastly, we got to whip up some kind of dish, means to just make a meal, supper, dinner, whatever it is, very quickly. Anyhow, guys, but I'm gonna stop there because we're just about at the end of our class. So, I know you guys got an assignment due tomorrow, and I know that's related to describing how you cook something. So good luck with your writing assignment. Try to use some of these phrasal verbs, right? And some of the key vocabulary that we looked at in the listening activities today. So good luck with that, guys. Have a good evening and enjoy your meals, okay? I will see you guys next week or another time. So bye-bye, have fun. Bye.